Hey friends, I'm Ash.
I'm Elle.
We are Lobby Cosplay.
And this is Shenanigans Cosplayers Say. I'm already tired of sewing and I just restarted sewing.
Haha.
I spent the last 2 hours seam ripping a piece for Gengar that did not go together the way that I want it to.
There's like I think people block out of their memory just how much non-sewing is involved in sewing because it's a lot. Because that's what it's ironing and seam ripping.
Surging because, okay, so I bought saris for Sinbad, right? Well, guess what? When you cut a sari, it just falls apart. It just falls apart.
Yes, it does.
The fabric just falls apart because it's a large weave fabric. It just falls apart. So I had to serge every freaking piece because it literally there's no way. There was nothing else I could do. I either would have to do freight check or serge it. And my serger doesn't like this fabric, so he keeps trying to chew on it because apparently the serger still wants to do that. So if anyone has recommendations for a serger that threads itself that I might be able to find used, because I don't want to spend $1,000 on a serger, but I'm really tired of this machine. This machine and I are not friends. I had it cleaned. I had it fixed. It's still being a pain in my ass, so...
I wonder if it's a tension thing.
It probably is a tension thing, and I haven't quite figured out which one is doing it yet, because it does pull on the finer fabrics a little bit, and so I've adjusted that a little, so I think I might need to just lower the tension a little bit more across the board and see if that helps. But threading this machine is such a nightmare.
Yep.
And there's a reason this machine is $200. I mean, let's be honest. There's a reason that, I mean, I guess technically the one I have now is $300, but when I bought it, it was $200. It's a pain to thread. It unthreaded partway through while I was doing something. I'm just like, no, I'm done. I can't rethread you for the third time today. I can't do it. I just can't do it. And I'm so over it, but I don't want to spend $1,000 on a serger, and there doesn't seem to be anything in between. It's either this machine or $1,000. There's no middle machine, and I am not buying another serger that doesn't thread itself. It needs to do it itself. I am not paying money for a machine that I have to thread myself ever again. I'm not doing it. I hate it so much. I hate it. I hate it. If I'm going to spend money on a serger, it's going to do it itself. So what I need to do is find a used one, because a lot of people buy sergers and then they're like, I never use this, and then they try to resell it. So I have to find a used one that threads itself.
May the odds ever be in your favor.
I hate sewing. I need to start doing costumes that don't make me sew things.
I mean, that's valid.
Minimal sewing, more other things.
That's me right now. I want all the other.
I'm just why did I decide to do this? Because this is sewing and I don't want to. I don't. Well, but I'm halfway there now. So now I'm you should just finish.
Living on a prayer?
The sewing part. Because I have to finish the sewing part on Sinbad and I don't want to do that either right now. So it's just, I think the problem I have is the order of things is that when you have a costume that base is fabric, you feel like you need to finish that first because that's the wearable part of the costume. So it's sure, I could work on jewelry and all of the stuff, but I don't have a costume unless I do the fabric parts. So it's usable without the jewelry parts, but it's not usable without the fabric parts. So then you feel obligated to do the fabric parts first because that's what makes the costume usable, as opposed to all the accessories. So I feel I need to get the fabrics done so then things are at least usable.
Maybe you should intersperse, and as you finish fabric things, then reward yourself by doing something fun.
So that's not what this episode is about, though.
Absolutely
this week
not.
We're just
so happy Mother's Day.
Yes, happy Mother's Day, friends.
So in the US, it is Mother's Day, and a lot of other countries. So we just wanted to say happy Mother's Day to all moms and mom adjacent individuals out there in the world. So yeah. So our idea behind this episode today was to kind of address like one basic question, which was, how has being a mom impacted cosplay and con going for me specifically? Obviously, I can only talk about my own personal experiences and not everybody else. But in general, we're going to go over it. And as I was prepping notes for today's episode, it was like a trip down memory lane. So it really felt like it was steering towards this like big culmination of several of our mental health related episodes.
Yes.
Yeah. So in addition to some parent specific stuff, we're going to touch on some topics from past episodes, kind of as a refresher for those who are just joining us and did not experience them firsthand when they aired. But if you would like to revisit some of those concepts in their totality, I'm also going to recommend to go back to the catalog and hit up a couple. We've got episode 74, which was post-con depression, episode 70, no F's given, episode 43, which was crushing con crunch, episode 37, which was self-care extraordinaire, and then all the way back to episode 7, our Congoers Survival Guide on Con Crunch. So, yeah, or Con Crud. Congoers Survival Guide on Con Crud. So, yeah, lots and lots of goodies.
Well, and I feel like this will also apply to a future episode later where we will talk about self-expression, cosplay, and identity.
It could, to a certain extent, yes. And since this is a mental health episode and we are big advocates for erasing stigma, we're going to get into some of the heavy stuff here at the front end because it's important. So back to the question, how has motherhood impacted cosplay and con going for me? Oh boy, let me tell you. So I'm just going to start with, there's a lot of terms that get thrown around with parenting, especially for new moms. So we're going to get some of those out of the way. I'm going to preface this by saying that, like, as a whole, they're not restricted to just moms, but because, you know, the patriarchy and all that, that's how they get labeled. So anytime I refer to moms or mothers going forward, in your head, you can replace that with primary caregiver of either gender, because the concept's exactly the same. There are, or I should say, of any gender, not either gender, primary caregiver of any gender. The concept's the same. There are some more clinical sounding definition for some of these, but I always enjoy an excuse to use Urban Dictionary. So here we go. First one is mom brain, which is a lack of normal brain function that the non-mom does not possess. After birthing a child, you forget things frequently and don't remember what you did 5 minutes ago.
I feel like that's just my life. But I do hear that gets a lot worse just after a baby, which there's a scientific reason for that, but...
Well, and it's not limited to birthing parents only. So they've actually done research studies that found there's an increased activity in the amygdala, which is the part of the brain responsible for emotional processing, in any parent who serves as a primary caregiver. So this also includes very involved fathers, adopted figures, grandparents, whoever. Our next mom term we're going to use is mom guilt, which is guilt that a mother feels anytime she takes time to do something for herself outside of work that does not involve her children. It's so real. It's so real. Largely in part because of mom shaming, which is criticizing and degrading a mother for her parenting choices because they differ from the choices the shamer would make, or that they say that they would make because you don't actually know what you would do in those shoes. But now that we got all the asshole definitions out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about some fun things that new parents get to deal with. I'm exhausted just thinking about some of these.
I mean, there's a reason I'm not a parent, we'll put it that way.
Yeah. So
that was by choice.
That is your choice. You can make that choice. It should be everyone's choice whether or not this is something that they want to do. Don't get me wrong. Motherhood is great, but it's definitely not all sunshine and rainbows. On to the first, fatigue. We got a couple different kinds of fatigue. So physical fatigue, which I think is what most people think of, is a temporary physical inability of muscles to perform optimally. I get that a lot. Mental fatigue is also a pretty popular one, which is a temporary inability to maintain optimal cognitive performance. I also found another definition on another site that I just really enjoyed, which said mental fatigue results from prolonged cognitive activity, which impairs cognitive ability, which just means if you think too much, then you get bad at it.
I mean, that is literally how that works.
Which is also the same for emotional fatigue, which is a chronic state of physical and emotional depletion that results from excessive work or personal demands or continued stress. I can't imagine why a working mom would potentially be under continuous stress.
No idea. No. There's no reason for that.
That's yep, so far I'm with you 100% right here. So then mom guilt will then keep parents from indulging in self-care, and then they deny themselves the ability to recharge. Spoon theory. Insert spoon theory here. So we've talked about it a couple different times. I'm going to totally butcher this last name, but Christine Miserandino, is that how you say that?
I believe so.
We're going to go with it. Had an essay in 2003 titled Spoon Theory, and it's in relation to chronic illness. Her friend had lupus, and she was trying to help her understand why it affected her ability to function as expected by society. There we go again with society and what they think we should be doing. But the concept is illustrated by 12 spoons, and different tasks require different amounts of spoons in the form of physical and mental energy. And then the more energy you need, the more spoons are required. And then if you have a chronic illness on top of that, then your spoons might cost different than somebody who is not chronically ill. But that's the basic concept. So yeah, so you don't get to wash your spoons ever because you feel bad about washing your own spoons. You're only willing to wash the baby spoons. You know, that's rough. So we have fatigue and we're not doing anything to help ourselves about it, which can, cause some additional issues like insomnia. Been there, done that, which is a sleep disorder in which people have trouble falling asleep or staying asleep as long as desired. And it's also common for patients who have difficulty falling asleep to have nocturnal awakenings with the difficulty returning to sleep. And I can 100% vouch that that's me. According to the National Sleep Foundation, people ages 18 to 64 need around 7 to 9 hours of sleep every night in order to keep good health. I know, right? Well, sleepjunkie.com did a study, and 68% of the respondents prior to parenthood did get 7 or more hours. But then after parenthood, that decreased to like 10%.
I mean, yeah, that's your schedule is now around another human being instead of yourself. So that
on top of those sleep issues, I feel like you're also more prone to get non-restorative sleep, which is when you do not reach delta sleep, also known as slow wave sleep. And that is linked to pain, fatigue, anxiety, depression, and a low capacity for performing tasks and activities found necessary or desirable in life. Makes sense. All these, I'm really selling this whole parenthood thing, aren't I? Another thing that at least I know that I am guilty of is malnutrition, which again is defined as a deficiency, excess, or imbalance of energy, protein, and other nutrients, which adversely affects body tissues and form, characterized by either undernutrition, which is a lack of nutrients resulting in stunted growth, wasting, and being underweight, or overnutrition, which can result in obesity. Because if you're too busy taking care of another person, you don't necessarily take care of yourself. You might eat not enough food because you're busy, or you might grab McDonald's because it's easy, or you might eat their leftovers off of their plate from whatever they don't eat, even if that's not necessarily what you should be eating. And if you add that on top of the fact that birthing parents already deal with a lot of body image issues post-pregnancy, that whole lack of consistent diet and exercise schedule does wonders for people. So clearly me choosing a really revealing costume for my first new competition piece after giving birth was a great plan. We learn.
Yeah.
We learn. I know. If that didn't sell it for you, I bet this next one will, which is the default parent syndrome. Yeah, I know. So the quote unquote default parent is the one who is quote unquote first in line when it comes to caring for children, child-related responsibilities, or home-related tasks. Assuming that there are two parents present, the default parent is more likely to carry the bigger load in parenting. And then default parent syndrome is a systemic and collective experience in which there is a bias towards women and mothers in providing primary care for parenting and home-related tasks. This bias is largely a product of decades of the patriarchy.
The patriarchy.
It has continued to evolve in various ways through time.
Because we live in a society.
Yes. Yeah. I just, so many times through this, I'm going, the patriarchy.
The patriarchy.
They had this list on this article I was reading about people that are more at risk for being, I don't know if you call it victimized, but for default parent syndrome. And the entire time I was reading it, I was like, I am in this picture and I don't like it. So yeah, I'm going to read this list to you guys that was in there because yeah, the 100% I'm like, these are all me and I hate it. The first one was identifying as a woman or mother within a family system. One or one's partner having more traditional gendered norms regarding parenting. One or one's partner growing up and observing the woman or mother within a family system be solely or mostly responsible for parenting and household tasks.
Do we have to start doing the counting?
I know. We're at 3 out of 3 right now. Struggles with guilt and anxiety if and when one's attention shifts away from parenting or household tasks. Curse you, mom guilt. Difficulties communicating one's desires or expectations to others.
Really?
I know. It's so weird. So weird. Challenges with people pleasing, particularly within relationships with one's family. Oh, you're gonna love the next one. An ongoing struggle with perfectionism.
Oh, really? No, not you. Never you. No.
One or one's partner growing up in a family that upheld more patriarchal norms regarding parenting and household tasks. But yeah, nope.
So
I was like, I'm in this picture. All of them. I am at high risk for this.
You're at maximum risk.
At maximum risk. Super maximum risk. Because of the patriarchy.
The patriarchy.
Yes. Luckily, so far I have not experienced all of the consequences of default parent yet, which are considered to be chronic fatigue and burnout, feeling of resentment towards partner and children, diminished ability to care for oneself, and a significant decline in mental health. So all of that sounds absolutely exhausting.
Well, because I would assume that part happens when the other partner literally does nothing. Like they are sticking to that like very gender norm, like I don't do anything. I go to work and I come home kind of.
Well, and I think in some relationships that works okay, but like I cannot imagine like as a working parent that ever being a thing.
I mean, I don't understand how you all do anything. Like I come home from work and I can get like, now, granted, I mean, I work 12-hour days, too. But, like, I come home from work and I can get, like, one thing done and I go to bed and I think about it all the time because most of my coworkers have children. You do. Obviously, I have 3 nephews now because my brother had twins. So I have 3 nephews. I don't understand how anyone gets anything done when they have children. Like, I'm like, I don't. Kudos to all of you. I have no idea how y'all do it.
It's magic.
I'm guessing there's hormones that make you want to do it because I don't understand. Now, again, there's a reason I'm not a parent. I don't have the mom instinct. I don't have it. It's not there. I don't have a look at the baby. Like, it doesn't exist.
Yeah, look at the baby.
I like children. Obviously, I'm a pediatric therapist. I just never was one of those people where, like, you know, some people look at a baby and then they're just like, oh my God, I need one like right now. Like I have that with puppies. I don't have that with babies.
Yep.
I don't have that instinct. I'm guessing it's that parenting instinct that helps hold some of it together.
Well, and they actually say that like your brain chemistry, like when you give birth,
well, yeah,
actually alters your negative emotions.
Yes.
So that you don't remember the bad parts about pregnancy and childbirth because your brain chemistry wants you to continue to have babies.
That is 100% correct.
Yes. So the science makes you forget all the bad stuff and only remember the good things about it.
Because I feel like if you could remember, no one would have another one.
Right?
Like...
Yeah. Yeah, as somebody that had their epidural renewed several times during the course of labor, like I can imagine that people do not want to do this more than once.
No.
But they don't remember
Right.
exactly. They're like, oh, it wasn't that bad.
But they remember
Look at
how
the baby.
cute the baby is and how they smell good. And then they want another one.
They have this great thing called baby lotion, and anybody literally can smell like that. I'm just saying.
Well, but they have a smell without that, though. Like, because that's on purpose, too. Because that's to make you, like, want to take care of them. It's like, that's also a brain chemistry thing. And it works on any adult. Like, it doesn't have to be the parent. Like, it's just
as
a
long
thing.
as you're not a sociopath, yeah.
Like, it's just a thing. Like, so if, most adults who have any sort of nurturing instinct whatsoever, it can work on. Like,
yes, it's also your brain chemistry will also do it when you see babies' faces. You're just like, I need the baby and I need to take care of the baby.
But see, like, I don't have the overwhelming I need the baby.
Well,
thing.
but you can have the I need to take care of the baby without the I want to take one home.
Well, yes, that's true. Like, it's like, yes, I need to take care of this baby. Like, it's odd. Like, it's if I go to my brother's house, it's like if one of the twins start crying, it's an automatic thing. I just get up and. But I also know it's like my sister-in-law needs a break, so it's my job while I'm here. So like it kicks in when I'm like, okay, it's my job to do this right now, because like.
Well, and also like. If you're walking down the street and there's like a baby on the side of the road, you're gonna pick it up and do something with it.
You know,
you're not gonna just like leave it there.
But I think that's also because originally we were designed to like take care of children as units and not so like you needed the people like me who didn't have one to like help balance everybody out.
It literally took a village because literally everybody chipped in.
But now we don't really like do that anymore. So
no,
we don't live close enough to our like family units to do that anymore.
Stranger danger.
Yes, exactly.
So much stranger danger. We're going to talk about that right now, actually. So all of that obviously sounds terrible. But what does it mean?
Yeah, this is not great. You're not convincing these future possible parents on Mother's Day to be mothers and parents right now.
I'm just keeping it real here. I'm just keeping it real. But what does that mean for me and my cosplay journey? So we'll start with the easy one, which is physically attending conventions. Really on the front end, it just adds a lot of logistics, mostly because my partner's work schedule is terrible for daycare. Pickups and drop-offs are not a thing for my partner at our daycare of choice. So for a while, it was really awesome because his bonus aunt essentially could do pickups and drop-offs or even like an overnight if we needed it. But last year she changed jobs and now she has 2 days per week that she commutes really far. So depending on which days I'm going to be gone, sometimes that doesn't always jive. And then we have to communicate with the village that lives far away, our out of town family, for somewhere for him to stay, which everybody is pretty excited about it and they're more than happy to do it. But then I have to pack for him to be gone a certain number of days, and then we have to find the logistics of how is he going to get from here to there, or is somebody going to pick him up from daycare and then they're going to come here and get him, or do I have to take him somewhere, or do we have to meet somewhere? And then when we get back, it's the same thing. Like, how am I getting the child back to where he needs to be? And then for shorter trips, like especially in the warmer months, if he's not with extended family, that typically means I need to be home sooner on Sundays so that my partner can still get all of his weekend stuff done, because he can't do them if he's solely caring for the executive producer by himself. And his non-daycare conducive schedule also means that he can't really do it through the week because it's too early when he goes to work and it's too late when he gets home to do any of that kind of stuff. Like mowing, mostly. That's the big one. But any of that kind of stuff that he pretty much only can do on the weekends. Yeah, it's not getting done with a little. But it's just some logistics for the most part. Maybe a little extra money and gas and a little bit of extra time. Me talking to some people and possibly needing to take extra time off to go and actually do the thing to get him where he needs to be and back. But it could be worse. It's not terrible. And then he gets an excuse to see his grandparents or his aunts and uncles. It works out pretty well.
Well, and we've looked at like traveling separately so that like you can leave, or like I'm at a gig longer than you are. We have to do that for FunkCon, for instance, where you can only make it on Saturday, but I can get there Friday afternoon. And since it's literally 20 minutes from my house, I can stay all day on Sunday.
Well, and we've also looked at going to conventions where we have to drive through one of the cities that one of my extended caregivers is in so that we can drop the executive producer off on the way and pick him up on the way home.
Which is also convenient.
Which is also terribly convenient, yes.
Yes, we have looked at some of them in that more southern direction so that we can drop them off.
Yeah, because anything like towards St. Louis and anything towards like Indianapolis, depending on what time of year it is, I got people.
Well, that's true. And we would pass through on Indianapolis too.
So, but as far as like actually like going through the process of prepping and cosplaying itself, this is going to come as a shock to absolutely no one, but planning along with all those rabbit holes that it typically brought along used to be my favorite part of prepping cosplay. Daydreaming, what if, over the top possibility, like, oh my god, the list of lists. Like, mwah. Now it's terrible and I hate it because my memory is terrible because I can't remember things 5 minutes later. So if it's not written down, it's not written down somewhere I can easily find it. When I go to look for it, it's going to be forgotten. It's going to be lost. It's going to be delayed or just completely missed. Like, did I already pick a base pattern for this costume? Did I already buy the base pattern that I picked out? If I bought it, where did I put it? When is the next time that patterns go on sale? Did I already look at that?
You need the magic of the bins. The bins that have the costume's name on them and all the things go in it.
Did I have to wait for another sale? Oh no, I have to buy full price. And yes, that is a great thing about bins.
I mean, that's the only reason, because see, I have all these brain problems all the time, because I just always have, so...
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of these are very just, in general, like, lots of people deal with these, not just moms. But it's worse for me.
It's almost like your brain almost gets like extra ADHD after having a baby, essentially. Like it's really similar like brain responses, especially with those like memory gaps that happen. And that like you walk in the room and you can't remember why you're there. Like that I
used to do that with the fridge all the time. That was my one thing. I would go to the fridge and I would open it and then I'd be like, huh. And then I'd leave because I couldn't remember why I was in the fridge. So the next thing is what I'm able to work on and when I can work on it is 100% up to the executive producer. So like there's some stuff I can work on when he's in the room, but only if he doesn't want my undivided attention or he doesn't want what I physically have my hands on because I'm holding it.
And he's at that age where he wants all of it. So
yeah, so some things I can only work on if my partner's home. And as long as then the executive producer says it's okay for me to not be in the room. And then there's other things that I pretty much can only do if he's sleeping or if he's not physically here. So if he's with family or still at daycare. I've had to cancel plans on more than one occasion, whether it's crafting rehearsals or whatever, because he was sick. And that whole maternal thing kicked in. And I was like, oh no, I need to take care of the baby. He doesn't feel good. And I kept him home from daycare and stayed with him.
Well, I mean, he doesn't feel good. I mean, that's what you got to do.
I know, like, he doesn't feel good, and I want to stay with him.
Done. We're just learning how to like plan more because we need to plan for the unexpected things that will now disrupt the plan more frequently than because we had trouble with plans before. And that has a lot to do with the fact that we're over an hour apart. So it's not
exponential.
It's not very easy for us to just jump. Well, before too was, because you couldn't just go anywhere because you had the dog. There was also like, oh, well, my partner's not home. I don't have anywhere for her to go. But now it's like, okay, because the amount of rehearsals we canceled before even SakuraCon between weather. And then getting sick and us getting sick, executive producer getting sick. It's just like, boy, we have to plan like extended periods of time now, which is fine. We just have to change our brains and how we do things to now plan in a different fashion.
That's the whole theme of today. I've decided.
We're learning how to do it.
We're learning.
Slowly.
It's good.
It's hard.
Yeah. Yeah, nobody says it's easy. So if I am going to work on something though, staging, prepping, and cleaning the work area takes far more mental everything and time than it used to. Because again, having that toddler who's like, ooh, shiny. What's that? What's yours is mine. And what does that taste like? That means nothing is left on the floor ever.
I mean, he ate your pattern once, so.
He did. Nothing on the lower counters, kitchen table. Yeah. Because before, again, I just had the dog, so I just shut the door to the sewing room.
Right.
And she would be out, and I would just call it a day. And I would just leave stuff wherever it was. I can't do that because he'll like pick stuff up off the floor, like, and he'll try to eat like fake foliage. And yeah, he chewed on my pattern once. He likes to chew on books. So like, I'm afraid to, I can't even like leave patterns in the envelope out because I'm afraid he'll pick it up and like want to suck on it. And I'm like, no. But yeah, like I'm extra paranoid now. Like I'm sure I've stepped on pins. I'm sure my significant other has stepped on pins more than once. But like I'm paranoid about the baby having pins. So normally when I'm done, I will vacuum with the upright vacuum and then run the Roomba at least once. If I've been anywhere in like the main area of the house with that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, because you don't really have a sewing room set up yet either, which also makes it hard.
Yes, it does. Well, because the two spaces besides the kitchen or the bathroom that have hard floors, they don't have very good climate control. So one of them is like an attached porch on the front of my house, which is amazing for natural light, but I also found that I had some stuff that was sitting on the floor that got moldy. So I'm really paranoid about keeping anything out there because I had bought like a furniture kit to put together a cabinet and had the pieces sitting out there at one point in time. And then when I went to go move them, like there was mold on it.
Oh.
And I was like, I don't know where this moisture came from because I've never found water in there before. So I'm really hesitant about doing anything out there. And then the other room just has too much of things that are not mine in it right now that I need to relocate elsewhere in the house.
I have a room like that too.
I know, it's crazy.
That could have been my sewing room, but we didn't want to have this room filled with a bunch of things. And
it's filled with a bunch of things.
It's filled with a bunch of boxes right now.
It's crazy.
Boxes.
At least like somewhat useful things. I just don't like that they're physically there. Like they can be, I would be okay with them being somewhere else. I can no longer marathon craft literally anything. So I used to love it. Like I would thrive on marathon crafting. I always wanted to do one of those like 24-hour cosplay in a day challenges. But I can safely say that will never happen. Ever. Because you can't hyper-focus that much on anything when you are simultaneously caring for another person. Like he has mental, physical, and emotional needs that need met even if I want to make a cosplay. So there's no way for that to happen ever. It's just not going to. I have to give up on that dream, which is fine.
Unless you like plan to take like a 24-hour period of time where he is somewhere to then do it.
Yeah, that would require a ton of planning.
It would. So. It probably would not be worth it, honestly. Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm at. I'm like, I would rather use my time away, I guess, as you would call it, from him for other things. And I don't want to necessarily just take time away from him for no reason.
Well, right.
Because that seems like a non-reason.
Yeah. I mean, it is. It's not.
Yeah. Yeah. But, I mean, really in the grand scheme of things, though, it's like beneficial because I did not do healthy marathon crafting.
No, you did not.
I don't know if there's actually any such thing as healthy marathon crafting, but I mean, too little sleep, not enough breaks, too much caffeine, too much sugar, too many carbs, not enough water, not enough just like healthy type foods. Well, and I always go back to like we had like 3 years in a row, like that 2016 to 2018 period where I ended up with a pinched nerve like multiple times a year from crafting. Like, and it was awful and I hated it. So yeah, no thanks. That's gone away and I like that because I don't let myself do it. Speaking of recommendations, so my limitations on time, space, and frequency mean I have to more so micromanage my crafting with like a calendar, which I'm not a huge fan of. So if anybody has really good resources you personally use for cosplay time management, I would love to hear about them because I'm used to using like physical calendars or notebook lists or even like Excel sheets, but I feel like I just need something different. And I don't know exactly what my needs are for that yet. Just not what I currently have. The other thing that I kind of have to do is I have to be more purposeful when I'm spending time and money on. So everybody knows that kids are expensive, and having more like limited free time and expendable income means I have to be a little bit choosier about what projects I'm giving one or both. I have noticed as a good side effect of this though that I haven't purchased as much, oh, wouldn't this be fun, like random supplies without a clear goal in mind. Part of it's a space issue because I've been on a huge decluttering kick, which I know I've talked about on here before. I haven't hit the craft room yet. It's on my list of things to do. It's just a very big job. And I haven't figured out how exactly I want to tackle it yet, like, and organize it once I get there, because just getting rid of stuff doesn't necessarily help if I still can't organize it very well. It's kind of at a standstill until I figure out what I want to do with that. 4 words: family Halloween.
Yes.
And themed birthdays.
The themed birthday was cute.
So for the past 2 years, I've given myself like full creative license with his Halloween costumes, and then just purchased or pieced stuff for my partner and I to match him. My partner doesn't quite get it, but crafting the costumes for our executive producer is 100% actually for me. It's nothing to do with him. I mean, because he would just be content. I mean, he's at the age now, he doesn't really get it, but you know, most kids would be totally fine with just a store-bought costume, but it's something that I can do and I want to do for him. It's also like weirdly freeing to be able to make something without having to think about it being judged, like figuratively or literally, because they're just normal people and not cosplayers. But also like it's not a competition piece.
An entire episode about not having to focus on accuracy and judging, because making Gengar, although I'm annoyed from all the sewing, has been shockingly freeing.
Well, and like we're normally like the only parents like that we see out that are dressed up, but I don't care. Producer's a little too young to appreciate it, but he'll totally get there because family Halloween is fun. The other pleasant side effect of that has been that buying costumes for family Halloween has made it like easier for me to, like on a mental level, to not feel, I think shame is the word I really want to use, around purchasing full cosplays for like photo shoots and conventions. And I think that's left over from back in the day when you had to make your costume or you didn't have a costume because you couldn't just buy it. And then there like came this like stigma around buying versus commissioning versus making your own. And so that's always just kind of, I've never faulted anybody else for it, because obviously everybody has different interests and time management and skill sets and money, but it's always just been one of those things I've unreasonably held myself to. And then I started piecing cosplay a couple years ago. And then, yeah, it probably wasn't until my Peach costume for his first Halloween that I actually bought the whole thing. And even then, I bought it. I bought a cosplay and then still pieced other parts and still changed other things in it. I didn't just wear it out of the bag. Betty last year would have been the first time that I did that. So that's nice to not have that weight, I guess. And yeah, and I definitely think doing any sort of just for fun costume where you don't have to worry about accuracy or what somebody else is going to think of it is just, it's really nice. And as we talked about, themed birthdays, that is like the one time of the year that I let myself go kind of over the top with the crazy mom stuff. Momfluencer, is that the word that they use?
Oh, it's pretty cute.
So last year we did like a small theme party. It was a pun. It was one deerful, so it was a deer, but it's wonderful. But yeah. But this year we had an in-person party. Last year we just did the 3 of us because of COVID, but this year we went all out with Blue's Clues, and I think I've talked about this before. So EP was wearing a Josh cosplay essentially, from Blue's Clues and You. And then we had a bunch of purchased and handmade props, which again was 100% for me because I wanted to do it. My husband's like, what are you doing? Like, you don't have to do that. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to do all these things. And I'm like, but I want to. So like, I made the Skidoo picture frame, and I made a Felt Friends picture frame, and I used my Cricut and did a shovel and pail, and I made 3 clues and put them around the house, and I made a handy dandy notebook. It was all feel good stuff for me. It made me really happy. And then he destroyed my felt frame the other day, and I was devastated.
Oh, no.
I was like, and then my husband threw it away. And I'm like, no. I was going to like hang that up in my sewing room or something.
Sad.
And then he ripped the back off of the handy dandy notebook.
R.I.P. Felt Friends.
R.I.P. Felt Friends. Maybe one day I will resurrect you. But yeah, no, that's pretty much the gist of it. Yeah, like we kind of talked about earlier, like you mentioned, moms have a lot of the same problems that I think a large portion of our neurodivergent cosplay population deal with. And then with the added stress on top of that comes with being responsible for the health and well-being of another person. No pressure, right?
No. None.
No.
No.
None.
No.
None. Just kidding. Yeah. What doesn't kill you make you stronger, and all that jazz. So yeah, y'all are superheroes in my book. It's one of the more rewarding experiences in my life so far. We're only a couple years into it, so I guess catch me in 20 and we'll see how that goes. But yeah, obviously it's not for everybody, but there's a lot involved in it. But yeah, I think overall the positives outweigh the negatives if we're talking about cosplay specifically. Obviously, there's a lot that goes into parenting, so everybody's going to be able to make their own choices for that. But kind of some of the negative side effects that you might call it of, you know, having him and having to plan around him and care for him are actually really beneficial for some of the other things that they cause, like needing to take a step back and plan things more in advance. The fact that I can't sit and just do marathon crafting all day and physically injure myself. The fact that I actually have to plan out buying supplies and not just waste money on stupid that I'll never use. So, I mean, those are all really good things that kind of spurned from something that initially sounds not so great. And pretty much everything that I talked about is good in that particular fashion, where you can just take that negative and spin it into a positive. So,
because most people assume that the second they're a parent, they have to stop doing like all of this or really anything, which is also unfortunate.
That is super unfortunate.
I like that that's changing for people, and particularly for, you know, for women in particular, or the birthing parent, that, you know, they don't have to give up everything. It just has to be different than it was.
Well, and that was one of the things that we had talked about really early on. It was either I was either still pregnant or it was right after he was born, and I was talking about how important it was to me to not stop, because cosplay has been such a large part of my life for so long, and it's such like a core part of my identity, and I still have like hopes and dreams and goals of things that I would like to achieve like within the realm of cosplay. And I never want him to think that he has to give any of that up for any reason. Like, I want to be able to say, yes, I was a parent, but look at all of these other things that I did. Like, my life still had, you know, these things that I was interested in, and I still kept pursuing, and I still excelled in different fashions. So yes, you also need to be a parent if you're a parent, but you should also be able to follow your own dream and not give everything up for another person.
It just means we just do things a bit differently.
Different. It's not bad. It's just different.
We're still figuring it out, but, you know, like we realized, performance only competitions might be good to look at because they don't require like you to make an entire new costume, or doing this. The podcast fits around schedules, so we still get to do things without like having to worry about specific schedules. It may mean we make less pair costumes. Oh no. And we buy more of them. Oh no.
Yeah, different doesn't necessarily mean bad. Like, change can be good. I mean, change is good in general. Like, evolving and not being stagnant and what you're doing is good. Growth is good. So
It's gonna be a quality over quantity situation.
yeah, and I think it's one of those things we had always talked about doing anyway, was more quality over quantity.
Right, because we were trying to stop ourselves from making random things for random things that we didn't either really, really want or weren't really invested in because it costs a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
So then it's like, well, we made this thing and then we used it for this thing, but this thing wasn't really that important. We could have been focusing on XYZ instead.
Literally anything else.
Or
Yeah.
like, we can make these, but we don't need to hyper focus on how perfectly they're made because we just want them and we don't have to put them in a competition, which I haven't wrapped my head around yet.
Yeah.
That whole like, you don't have to put it in a competition thing. I don't know that
Well,
one
that's
yet.
because that's what we did 20 plus years ago.
Because I don't,
is, you know,
I literally I don't know how to make something that isn't supposed to be in a competition. Yes, like Oogie hasn't been in one yet. She will eventually. Like, did I make Harley for a specific competition? No, but I intended her to be in a competition at some point in time. Like,
right.
I don't know how to make a costume that isn't necessarily intended for competition. Even if like I put it in a competition for funsies, like making something that isn't like directly intended for a competition. I don't know how to do this.
It's a learning process. We're all learning.
Because I feel like my time should be spent on the things that are going to competition. But that's my learning process.
But we all have them. We all have those things that we just kind of have to adjust to as we move on to different parts of our lives and get older and our circumstances change and all that. And, you know, adapt and overcome. That's the big part. Well, happy Mother's Day, guys.
Happy Mother's Day.
Hopefully I didn't scare you off from parenthood too much. One of these days we'll have to do our other parent-centered episode.
Oh, yes. We have to have your parents on.
Where we talk about the other side.
Maybe that'll be season 5's Mother's Day episode.
Maybe. I mean, we got options. There's Mother's Day, there's Parents' Day, there's Father's Day. I also learned, because I was curious, there's a non-binary parent day.
Oh, okay.
Which I do not have a non-binary parent, but I think that's really cool. We already missed it for this year. It's in April. But so happy belated non-binary parent
and
day.
yes, there's Grandparents' Day, obviously. So
we're going to let you go for now. Get back to your Mother's Day ham or whatever it is that you're indulging in today. If you forgot to tell your mom adjacent figure, happy Mother's Day. Don't forget to do that today. I'm sure that she would appreciate it. But I'm Ash.
I'm Elle.
We are Lovey Cosplay.
And this is Shenanigans Cosplayers Say. You've been listening to Shenanigans Cosplayers Say, produced by LVC Productions. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Twitch, and YouTube at Lavi Cosplay. Our podcast Instagram is Podcast SCS. Our website is lavicosplay.com. Have a fun, crazy con or cosplay related story, absurd cosplay question, or just something in general to share with us? Email us at podcastscs@gmail.com or DM us at podcastscs or Lavi Cosplay on Instagram. If you like what you heard, please rate, review, and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for listening, and remember, just because you can doesn't mean you should.